Leaving Shadowlands, there were three things I never wanted to see again: Theater of Pain, Spires of Ascension, and Kel'Thuzad. I'm happy to report that after today, that list has been shorted to two things, but please, please don't let me try the other two anytime soon. It's crazy, right? For years, Theater of Pain was my go-to example for what a shitty dungeon might look like. If I were making a Nightmare Mythic Plus dungeon rotation, Theater of Pain is at the top of the list. And yet, I haven't been able to stay away on the PTR. So, let's take a look at the changes and see what's made this place a lot more like the Theater of Painless. Am I right? Okay, let's get into it. Alright, so first things first is going to be our first boss, and it's trash. Now in Shadowlands, these guys were a bit of a pushover. Except for that one time I think they had a fourth guy, but we won't get into that. Anyways, the strategy was usually either you would Mind Soothe or Shroud to get past these trash and save time, or you would simply lust and pull literally everything together. I'm happy to report that on the PTR, at least at the key levels we can do now, that is still completely possible. It is a lot more dangerous, however, as Decia, our melee queen here, now has a large AoE smash that even on just a 10 is completely chunking players. So one tick of that overlapping with one tick of the Bloodhorn tantrum is probably going to just wipe your group instantly. That being said, dealing with this boss is a little more complex than it was in Shadowlands, in the sense that the order you kill them in actually matters a bit more. After some thinking over it, it might be something more like Yalnu, where you sort of just have to map out how to deal with the smash for as long as you're in the fight. Because the two casters are going to be throwing out insane amounts of damage that will floor pop your tank incredibly quickly. And they've also got the lowest health. So it's very likely that blowing up a caster to get them out of the fight is going to be the play. Especially if your group has poor kicks. You know, if you have multiple casters or something. So besides the smash, you're going to want to watch out for some swirlies that are a lot quicker than you'd expect, and just making sure you're kicking absolutely everything you can. So after that, we're going downstairs, and we're going to start with the wing that's received the least of the Pogger's changes so far. And that's the Xav the Unfallen Wing. These archers here at the start are unfortunately still a huge pain in the ass. With proper control, you can still pull them into the Lieutenant mob, but due to the increased difficulty of the Lieutenants, pretty much any shot overlapped with an AoE mechanic is going to instantly remove someone from the game. So, if you're going to pull these together, you really need to make sure that you are locking them down properly. As for the mini-bosses themselves, I mentioned they were buffed a little bit, and yeah, these guys absolutely fuck. Again, we were just blasting Pug 10s on the PTR, so these aren't exactly mind-blowing keys, but from here already it's apparent that unless you're going to LOS or use a major defensive, almost every mechanic for these guys is just going to kill you instantly. Make sure that you're never holding anything. You're going to want to send cooldowns instantly as soon as you get it, because these guys need to die quick, or they are just going to be constantly taxing your defenses. So finally, after, our two mini-bosses and our captain pack, we get to our King of the Wing, Xav the Unfallen, and I gotta say, man, this guy still fucking sucks. I mentioned in an earlier video that he was burning in shitty boss hell. And it looks like that's not changing anytime soon. There's pretty much no changes of note here. His circle AoE still interrupts casting. He still pretty much one-shots your party every time he starts his mechanics. And he still makes you PvP. It's unclear if now you'll at least want to kill the banners, but I can't see a reason why you would want to put all that damage in when still really all it does is a slow. Really, you're probably just going to want to continue to burn the boss and do your best to dodge with the slow. So, anyways, Xav the Unfallen, I pray he gets some changes or gets looked at again, because as is, this guy is pretty much just still the worst boss of all time. So, let's get on to something hopefully a little more fun. Alright, so you survived Xav the Unfallen. Let's look at the Kul'Tharok Wing. The spirits in the first room are still completely LOSable, but again, they do seem to do a lot more damage than they did in Shadowlands, so once again, control is crucial here. You're going to want to make sure that you lock these guys down for as long as you're fighting them. The big Spirit Guardians as well do just incredible damage, so make sure you stay on top of prio damage. As tempting as it can be to turbo pad the little adds, if you end up pulling a Spirit Guardian into them, you're going to want to make absolutely sure that you are focusing on the prio target before he pretty much kills everybody. The skeletal mages, which are on pretty much every platform, are unfortunately still spellcast one-shot machines. Luckily though, any purge effect can cut off 50% of their HP instantaneously, so you can burst them down pretty quickly, even without cooldowns. If possible, if it's not going to cause a problem with the mobs living too long, prio classes should really try to make sure that they're hitting a real target on these packs, as things like the Spirit Guardians or the big-ass bone skeletons are going to have easily 3 times as much effective health as the Spirit Mages will. So, hit something real. Alright, it's Kul'Tharok time. Now, if you did this fight in Shadowlands once Double Dispel was a part of the equation, then you might remember that the main challenge here was actually going to be staying awake through the entire boss fight. Well, I'm happy to report that nap time has been removed from Theater of Pain. We've got a full boss rework, and it's actually quite interesting. Let's take a look. His first mechanic you're going to see here is that he's going to summon 4 orbs to float all around his platform. You're going to want to do your best to dodge this by moving in and out, because as you'll see in a second, respecting your teammate's space is going to be absolutely critical to this whole boss fight. The main abilities here are going to be a large tank blast that will annihilate any nap timing DPS players it hits, and Shadow Wells, which will go do big damn to a few of your party members and anyone unfortunate to be nearby them. Finally, the boss will occasionally mark that he's going to suck your soul. Not in any way you're going to like, though. This one spawns an ad that moves towards the boss and explodes Ansurek style. They've got a good chunk of health, but they're vulnerable to CC, so make sure to do your best not to let them touch.
Holy shit, that is crazy. My cooldown's like just fucking ended. I mean, of course, now it's time to...
Oh, that's my bad.
It's okay.
Alright, so we've got Kul'Tharok down, but we're missing that nap time we would have gotten normally. So, how's the last bit hold up? Well, honestly, it's almost pleasantly exactly the same. I do want to make note that the changes to recasting have made the detonations a little more dangerous in this first pull, as if you don't have an actual kick, you might have some issues getting them stopped. But at the same time, in a coordinated group, you might be able to take advantage of its long cast time. As for the little patrol guys that walk around when you're going downstairs, I would have bet literally anything that they would have made these mobs unskippable. But you can still sneak by just the same. Their frontal buntle combo's got an all-new visual. It's maybe a little hard to see, but I assume we'll get used to it. At the same time, their damage aura is really cranking again, even on a 10, so I wouldn't be surprised if the strategy becomes to pull the big guy downstairs away from the leapers, because the damage of his aura combined with the leapers is going to be incredibly deadly incredibly quickly. Gorechop himself can still be pulled with the 2 trash mobs in front of him with little to no addition of difficulty. He's mostly the same, although it seems as though the ads this time around are much more likely to just decide to fuck off and attack your ranged DPS. I've heard a lot of talk about threat being bad on the PTR, but this seemed a little bit excessive, as even 1 or 3 ticks of Ignite were just completely ripping threat off these little guys. So, if you're a tank, make sure you're really watching to keep threat on these guys. And I will say too, be careful, as this guy can kind of smack your tank around if they aren't ready for it. With the removal of tank busters from most of the dungeons, Gorechop's definitely stands out as something that is going to hit you pretty hard. So, again, if your tank needs some help, watch out for him. But besides that, this is pretty much the same Shadowlands fight, so just blast through and we'll get back upstairs for our last boss.
I think my spec is just broken everywhere. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, that's true, but it doesn't look as broken when my spec is looking broken.
So lastly, our final girl, Mordretha. This boss is once again pretty much unchanged. The biggest thing here is going to be, as it was in Shadowlands, being aware of shitty overlaps that are going to happen, because if you're not ready for them, they can feel a bit unfair. The portal that sucks you in, overlapping with the ads that spawn, can catch you off guard if your healer is really struggling. In the second phase, the notorious Ghost Riders plus Frontal wombo combo is gonna kill you if you aren't quickly aware of where is safe and where you need to be moving to stand. So, I would say, when things happen, like when the Ghost Riders spawn or something, take a look around and think like, okay, these are gonna hit here. Where can I stand? Where can I move if Mordretha decides to do her blast in my direction? If you're aware of everything, and you kick your own ad, you're not going to have too many issues. But do make sure that you defensive when she does her transition into phase 2, because without a defensive, you're not going to have to worry about dodging for long. Oh yeah, and again, please, I already said it, please kick your ad, please. Anyway, okay, Mordretha, easy, no problem, you got it. And boom, you time the key, no fucking problem. So, what actually changed here? What's actually improved? Well, we've gone from 3.5 boring bosses to 2. And really, the biggest positive here is that a lot of Theater of Pain's good attributes are preserved. I mean, doing this PTR testing has really shown me that, for Theater of Pain specifically at least, a lot of dungeon design since Theater of Pain was in rotation has kind of met them halfway and become more frustrating over time. So, in that way, going back to Theater of Pain was almost relieving. But that being said, the damage output of some of these mobs is insane, even on relatively low key levels. So I would expect some tuning down before long, and really, if I had to ask for anything from this dungeon, it would be to do something to make Xav the Unfallen anything other than the worst dungeon boss of all time. I was having a good time running through on the overall, though, and I would say that if it turns out that, you know, I have to farm something out of Theater of Pain, I'm not going to be too pissed about it. I'm not sure if this is a honeymoon phase or something that will end soon, but as of right now, I hate to say it, but I'm down to run some Theater of Pains again. So, that being said, look forward to my full Theater of Pain guide a little bit into the season. We'll talk about, you know, things that end up actually being problematic in high keys, ways to deal with them, ways to handle the trash pack, and we'll have a good time. So, yeah, that's that. I'll see you soon. Peace. Oh, and hey, all the clips for this video were actually recorded live on my stream with my friend Brady. So if you'd like to check it out, I'd love to have you around. Don't forget to please consider subscribing if you'd be interested in competitive 11.1 content, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on the video in the comments. I'm Aaron, and I hope to see you around. Peace.
I think my spec is just broken everywhere. I'm not gonna lie.